Morning, Simon. Morning, Adam.
Good morning, Robin.
Hi. You're having a...
Finally working.
How are you today?
Not too bad. Have a HOSPA exam tonight, this afternoon.
Ooh.
So getting ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then head back to the office tomorrow. So see what's happening with the bookings. They seem to be picking up here.
Yeah. That's in Malta, isn't it?
Yeah, Malta. We started off 1st of July.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we might close this month with just over 30% occupancy.
Under the circumstances, it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, considering that until the 15th, the airport's only open for certain flights. It's not open to all destinations.
Hmm.
So
That's about.
that's not bad. But next month it's already picked up to close to 50% occupancy.
Mm-hmm. Suppose you don't get much national trade there, do you?
Well, we can't have local tourism here. It's too small.
No.
So we need the external tourism to be coming back to Malta.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
We'll see.
Do you get many boats, or are the boats not working yet, or?
No, cruise liners are not working at the moment.
No.
No, it's just airlines, and not even all airlines have yet started their regular schedules. So it's still picking up. You know, it's starting off from zero again, and that's what makes it even harder.
Yeah. It's interesting times.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
How are things in the UK? Are they picking up though?
The UK, well, yeah, it seemed the rural market seems to be picking up quite a bit. You hear a lot of story. A lot of the hotels are only just opening. Although it was the 4th of July, there seems to be a slow feed of hotels that are actually opening up, rather than all just jumping on there on the 4th. So Barry's going to do a little sort of like check around within the presentation, within the forum later on. So we'll see where places are at. But yeah, the UK's starting to pick up.
That's good.
Morning, Kevin.
Morning, how are you?
Kevin.
Okay, you?
Would be if Boris would do something about meetings and events.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Another one of our venues is has to be sidelined because they're making major redundancies because they've been closed since March. Their revenue's down by 95%, and they're getting rid of about 80% of their staff. So,
good grief.
So there's more revenue, more of my revenue disappearing down the toilet.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's difficult times. It's funny this with the meeting, isn't it? I mean, they're also playing around. I mean, the masks thing. They've just popped in today and said, "Oh, right, from the 24th, masks are
compulsory."
When up until now, it's like everybody else has been using masks, and we've been sort of sat there.
But according to mass media, conference news and the likes, they were saying back on the 24th of June that the government did a roadmap to meetings, but absolutely nothing has been done since. And talking to the agents, that now it's got to the stage now where their corporate buyers are lacking in confidence, because if they want to organise something for, say, October, November time, then they need to start planning it now. But because the government have made no commitment, what they're saying is, well, we just scrap it. So
the Zimmer and Draculite is on sale.
One of the agents has turned around and said, and Barry knows him quite well, Chris Peacock, he said that he's virtually written off 2020 and just hopes he can survive till January.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very true, Kevin. I'm speaking at an event.
Like, when did it become
Well, it's a virtual event, but it's based up here in Scotland. I'm speaking there after this today, and I'm doing a doing a fireside chat with an events organizer who's based up here near Edinburgh, and her take on things very much is 2020 written off, and kind of into Q1 2021 before they're really thinking of anything even remotely face to face. They're concentrating just on virtual events for at least the next 9 months.
Yeah, Anita Lowe's saying now that all of her large events for 2020 have postponed or cancelled, and she can't see those coming back till at least Q2, possibly Q3 of 2021. Before they start doing anything significant. She feels that there is a need and there's a hunger to do some of the smaller meetings, the team meetings, the board meetings, etc., because Zoom just doesn't really cut it on the long term. It's okay as a short-term solution, but no. And the other frustrating thing is that we're being urged by the HBAA and the MIA and all of the other representative bodies to write to our MPs, but half the MPs can't be asked to respond to your pleas, which I find really frustrating since I voted for them in the first place.
Have you got any contact with UK Hospitality, because they seem to be the only people who are actually getting the government anything around here?
Yeah, is that Kate Nichol?
Yeah.
Yeah. Through the MIA and HBAA, and I follow her on Twitter and LinkedIn and the like. So yeah, she seems to be doing some really good work. She did come across with some slightly ambiguous comments about when the government was saying about venues, hotels opening and weddings for up to 30 people. She didn't say directly, but a lot of people took it that, well, hey, hotels, we've got a meeting room, we can have 30 people in there, but actually we can't. So she had to backtrack slightly on that. And,
yeah. It's a shame. Considering the situation with the schools, it's a shame they just didn't turn around and talk about hiring out school meeting rooms to the schools to just fill that gap that was there. But they just don't seem to be very ideas minded at the moment. It's chasing their tail. Morning, Luke. Morning, Ian. Morning, Mark. Morning, Roy.
Morning.
Morning.
How are we all today?
Yeah, not bad. Tired. I had 3 little arrivals last night.
Sorry?
I had 3 little furry arrivals last night. So yeah, so having to play dad at the moment.
What breed were they? Sounds a bit bad today, Luke. You're cutting up on us a lot.
Is that any better if I stop the video?
Well, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, we had three kittens arrive last night unexpected. So yeah, so it's playing dad.
So were they totally unexpected?
No, they were expected just last night, basically. So we unfortunately still had a couple of weeks to go, and then all of a sudden things happened, and yeah, as they say, the rest is history.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Lee.
How are we all?
Morning. Are you well?
Yeah, we're plodding along. The weather's not so good these days, is it?
Where are you?
I'm in Bristol.
Well,
A bit dull.
Not too bad. I'm in Harrogate. It's not too bad here today.
Yeah.
Everybody always goes, "Oh."
It's actually rare for Harrogate, isn't it?
I love Harrogate.
Beautiful
I
town.
trained in Harrogate when I was first started with Trust House 40.
Nice. When was that?
Oh, many years ago now.
I can't recall.
I believe the answer to that question is a gentleman with a pill.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the
Hey, when
venues.
Trust House 40 still was Trust House 40, put it that way.
Well, that dates it anyway, Robert.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Just.
We can use BC again before COVID now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
But Lee, we work with Yorkshire Event Centre and Pavilions in Harrogate. Great team, love them there.
Yep. What do you do with them?
We're doing sales representation and working with the agents for them. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just been in contact with them actually. We're all being well, if COVID goes away, we're trying to run a festival.
Okay, cool.
And that was one of the locations. We got Harewood House have just completely said we're not doing anything.
Mm.
So that came next on the list, and they were pretty open. So yeah, good people. Heather.
Yeah,
I'm dealing with. Is it
Heather's
Heather?
lovely.
Yeah.
The thing I like about Heather is she's straight talking. There's no bull.
Yeah. That's what I found the difference between speaking with her as opposed to Harewood. It felt like a lot of people were happy to go on furlough and not want to do any work, whereas she was a bit more.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why we've gone that way.
Yeah, good.
Nice.
Because we can. Did I see that we can do festivals up to 1,000 people now?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I hadn't
I think
seen
that's
that.
one of the record.
Somebody's breaking us up. Where did you see that?
I'm sure I saw it. I was talking to the guys at Uick Showground.
Okay.
I think it was Paul that was saying, wasn't it, Martin? You're on mute, Martin.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was Paul. Yeah.
All we're doing at the moment is we're just pushing ahead and planning it and just having the flexibility for when everything says, yeah, we can. Because ultimately, the people have got to want to do it.
True.
And you'll even know with the hotel and hospitality industry at the moment, although there's great signs of some people wanting to go out, there's still a lot of signs of others that are just sitting and waiting and watching. And
True.
we'll see. It's a big investment.
Morning, everybody.
Everyone doesn't want to take it.
David.
True. Morning, David. Morning, Julian.
Right. How we doing?
Oh, well, Lee, next time I'm up in Harrogate, I'll give you a call and we'll have a coffee at Pavilions or yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Right. Well, morning, everybody. We've reached 10 o'clock. Still a few to arrive, but I think we can go on from there. So busy times. Hotels are opening up every day. I see through LinkedIn, and I get the impression that the occupancies are starting to rise as well. I was just even sort of it'll be interesting to see now how Scotland breaks through in the coming weeks as well. Today we were going to have later on Sarah Thompson and Matt from Expedia to give us some news on bookings and revenue management and everything. Barry's going to give us a state of the nation to see how things are going around the country. And we were going to have a talk by Julie Tate on sort of like restructuring and possibly the worst case scenarios. But unfortunately, she's stuck in Belfast. Nothing wrong with Belfast, but she was about to get a boat back yesterday and didn't quite make it. So luckily, our good Chancellor of the Exchequer has given something else to talk about. So I was just going to go through a few pointers on the latest news about VAT and the discount system as well. And then perhaps I'll ask Kirsty to just say a couple of words on the famous £1,000 present they're giving out if you manage to keep people on. So I'll just share my screen a minute, and where are we? There we go. Okay, so obviously one of the changes that have been is coming in is from the 15th of July till the 12th of January. I've got the date wrong there. That's the one. 12th of January. they're lowering the VAT on certain to 5%. This is very much a commercial decision for most hotels, because we tend to sell everything gross, as in your price is this and it includes VAT. So it's almost a case of how you want to appear to your clients as to whether you do reduce your prices or whether you take the extra 15% as extra profit. I've heard of some places who are splitting it down the middle, reducing the prices by a bit, but also keeping part of it for themselves, and honestly telling their clients they're doing that because they need to survive. Other places, no doubt, will just keep the gross as it is and take the money. I think it'd probably be, I don't know if many will actually reduce the full amount, because with the situation as far as cash flow is concerned, they'll need as much profit as possible. The items which are affected are accommodation, food, and non-alcoholic beverages, which is an interesting one, because that's going to cause quite a few headaches for people who've got POS systems and PMS systems, based on the fact that the VAT register usually comes from whatever you put in your PMS, and that is driven by the codes, which each code has its own VAT, which probably means most PMSs are going to have an extra code for non-alcoholic beverages on lunch and dinner for each hotel, for each restaurant they've got, to be able to process that information correctly. Add to that the point of sale. If you mix the VAT codes in the categories in the point of sale and in the PMS, you could end up with a big headache as far as balancing is concerned. So interesting times. Make sure you're in contact with whoever's handling your point of sale and PMS, and the two of them are talking to each other clearly. In worst case scenario, one possibility is to classify your non-alcoholic beverages as food. So they'll go through to the PMS at 5%, and then just do a journal of all your non-alcoholic beverages you've sold during the day back into the beverage side on the accounting side. So that way you don't have to worry so much about the VAT scenarios, but at least you're getting the information going through correctly. So anyway, so obviously make sure in your accountancy system you've added the extra codes, and that your system is capable of controlling that for your VAT returns. VAT on deposits received will be payable, obviously, it always is payable at the point of receiving the payment, and that should be handled automatically by your system. The tricky thing is that if you're receiving bookings during that period for after the 12th of January, you have to make sure, A, that you've got your prices set to include VAT at 20% after the 12th of January, or you'll have a headache when your system takes off the 20% VAT and you've sold it at a lower price. And also you need to make sure that your system is doing what most do, whereby it puts in a negative charge with its VAT as the deposit, and then adds up all the different VATs of the actual charges before it produces a bill. In that way, you'll just have, after the 12th of January, you'll just have negative 5% for quite a few months, and more positive 20%. So they're all things you need to sort of take into account to make sure that your systems will work correctly, and that you're selling at the right prices, so you don't do yourself any harm. The other, just a minute. There we go. The other one they brought out is obviously the 50% discount. There is a limit of £10 per person, so it's 50%. But if they spend more, and there is a limit as it is food and non-alcoholic beverages again. So you may need to make sure that if your point of sale system can't do that automatically, that your staff know clearly what they're supposed to be allowing off and what they're not supposed to be allowing off, or what they're it is specifically for eat-in only. They have put a clause that says if somebody sits down to eat and then decides to go away, then it's valid, but it's not for takeaway service. And it also does not include dining services, which are included in the price, as it were, as in these tour operators, that sort of thing, where there's no specific price for the thing. So you'll need to be careful with that, just to make sure that that sort of it's obvious that actually they're paying for it, even if they're paying for it in their rates, as it were. They're actually paying for it, and all the rest of it. So it's a tricky one, that, but will have to be considered. Only valid for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, obviously to produce more sales in those low peak times. And they expect you to be offering it during all service hours during those days. It will be valid from the 3rd to the 31st of August. And the most important thing you need to bear in mind with this, it is not really a discount. The government is paying you for these amounts, which means they expect you to put it through your system as sales with VAT on it. And then they are paying that bill for you. So you need to work out some way of transferring that discount to a ledger where then you can claim it off the government and pay off that ledger, but with VAT on top of those amounts. So it's not going to be easy for some people to sort of handle that sort of the way it works, but it is important that you bear that in mind. It's similar to the old furlough scheme where they paid you the amount of money you needed to pay back the PAYE. So they're not really giving you all this money without expecting you to give them something back. So anyway, those are the two biggies as far as sort of like the accountancy side is concerned. If I can hand over to Kirsty, and she can give us perhaps a little bit of news on how this will work, and if she thinks it will be effective, the £1,000.
Well, talking to different people, there's lots of different views, but they tend to fall into two camps. One is that they can see that it's sort of an additional add-on to the furlough scheme. So it's a job retention bonus scheme, which is welcomed by some, and others say it will not impact at all on the decisions they need to make for their business and won't mean that they will keep staff on. And basically it works as to be eligible. So when the furlough ends at the end of October, you need to keep somebody in continuous employment until the end of January. And then you should be eligible to receive the £1,000 per employee that was furloughed. It's kind of as simple as that, really. And I guess depending on your financials for your business, depends on how much impact it will have on you. But I would be interested to hear from, because it's quite recent, it was only sort of in the mini budget last week, I'll be interested to hear what people sort of think of it, whether it make any impact on them.
I think, Kirsty, I agree with you. It's not a game changer. It's nice, but it isn't impacting one single decision that is being made across our portfolio in terms of redundancies. We're looking at it purely that actually it will support the cost of some of those redundancy costs, when we get it back next January, February, whatever. That actually all it will do is offset some of those things. But it is nice to have, in larger businesses where we've got 80, 90, 100 people, going to come back at the end of furlough and remain employed. It's quite a nice sum of money, but but that will not even cover the redundancy costs. So that's pretty much how it's being viewed, I think.
Per employee, it's not the biggest amount of money, really.
Yeah, not versus their salary.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments?
Robin, I know Julie couldn't turn up today, but later on, if you just give me a few minutes, I could say a few words about restructuring and redundancy if you want me to.
Well, she's going to present at a later.
That's fine then.
Later event. It's just that got held up and literally couldn't had visions of if she was going to get back into the mainland, it'd be at sort of 3 or 4 in the morning. So very coherent.
If I could just touch on it though,
yes,
there's a little bit of a myth going around. It might not, none of you may realise this at all, but there seems to be a little bit of a myth that if people are furloughed, then you can make them redundant. They're completely separate things. So if you have furloughed staff, don't just assume that they're the ones that can be made redundant from a team. You have to keep it completely separate to any redundancy or restructuring decisions you're making. And you need to run a proper redundancy process, which includes a notification, consultation, and right to appeal over a certain period of time, depending on the number of people that you need to lose. So never put furlough and redundancy into the same box in your brain, because they're completely separate things.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So I think with that, Barry, are you ready to give us some ideas of how the world is operating today?
Robin, thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all again. Just for the next couple of minutes, really just want to round up activities over the last couple of weeks, the significant changes that have occurred, and there's been quite a few. And as we touched on 2 weeks ago, it's fair to say that the 4 home nations really are taking different routes on the same journey to hopefully reach the same destination. So the key significant things that have happened over the last couple of weeks, and if I may, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to pick on anyone in particular, but I might come to 1 or 2 of you who are present this morning in respective parts of the country, just to pose the question, what's been happening for you locally? I think I'm based up in Scotland, near Glasgow. So if we start off south of the border, for me, England opened its doors on the great 4th of July. As was heralded as the Independence Day. They love to grab headlines for the Westminster government, don't they? We saw a whole host of different headlines and different stories. Things seem to have calmed down a bit. Perhaps if I could ask Roy or maybe Paul or Nicola, who are operating south of the border, if I could just pose the question, how's the past week been for yourselves? Has it been fairly steady? Are you seeing sort of business on the books building? Has there been that sort of weekend rush and then things have gone quiet during the week? Paul, Nicola, I see you've unmuted there. How's it been for you?
Well, we're not actually open yet. We open on the 25th. There has been an improvement on the bookings coming in, especially through the likes of booking.com and whatnot. However, our main business is coach parties. So obviously they're still quite affected as to how many they can bring. We did originally have a full coach of 50 waiting to come through the doors on the 25th of July. Unfortunately, that operator can only bring 24 of those 49 people and doesn't have a second coach available to bring the rest of them down. So that's impacting quite a little bit. And the coaches in the next couple of months, the numbers are not what they should be by any means. But that could be because we mainly, our majority of our customers are the vulnerable age group. So a lot of them are still too frightened to travel.
Yeah, that certainly reflects discussions that I've been having within the family, Nicola. My parents are both in their 70s. My father's very much in the shielding category that we have in Scotland. They are the typical coach holiday passenger, have been for many years. And I have to say there's quite some reluctance from them, although they could travel and kind of the desire is there, but the logic kind of steps in at the last minute and says, don't really want to be sitting on a coach with 20, 30 other people where we're all in that high risk category. So that's interesting feedback. Roy, maybe if I come across to you just for a second and give us another perspective.
Yeah, sure, Barry. Yeah, so we opened on the 4th, and for the first couple of days, we was really quiet at the hotel. So we're a large independent hotel, and we're located right next to Birmingham Airport and the NEC. So very quiet for the first few days, but then we have seen pickups. So we're getting last minute bookings coming through. So the flexible furlough has been very good for us because we can start bringing team back. And if the work isn't there, then we can start placing them on the furlough and then bringing them back as and when we need them. So that's been a fantastic tool that we can use. So one of the frustrating things is as well, we've seen quite a lot of demand for small weddings. So people that have had to cancel their large wedding and they're looking for a smaller wedding, a maximum up to 30 people. So we was going to go ahead with that, but unfortunately, the local registry office is just fully booked and they can't reschedule anyone's weddings. So unfortunately, we wasn't able to go ahead with any of the weddings. So yeah, at the moment, it's slow and steady. We are seeing a few spikes here and there. So for instance, the holiday extras bookings, they've been coming through thick and fast, which is great to see. But at the moment, still a bit uncertain times for us.
Okay, that's great. Roy, thanks for sharing that update with us. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
North of the border, a slightly different situation. There was some limited opportunity to reopen. Self-catering accommodation was able to open from the 3rd of July. We saw outdoor food and beverage spaces reopening from the 6th. I'll share one little funny story that I was quite amused seeing one of the local pubs in the town where I live having their Adam and Gillian might particularly appreciate this one. Their very salubrious beer garden, which was a corner of the car park, taped off, which is probably about as best as you can achieve in North Lanarkshire. And I have to say, at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, there was quite a few folk out there enjoying a cigarette and a pint. The big day for operators north of the border is tomorrow. From tomorrow, our indoor food and beverage, restaurants, hotel restaurants and accommodation providers can reopen the accommodation space as of tomorrow. I was hoping that Christian from Crieff Hydro was going to be with us this morning. He was booked on as they opened their self-catering accommodation back on the 3rd, but I don't think he's been able to join us. So maybe if I could jump over to Adam, who's joining us from McDonald Hotels. Adam, maybe you could just give a very quick word on how things are developing with the hotels in the Central Belt ahead of tomorrow's reopening.
To be fair, there's not a lot I can tell you because I'm on furlough. So, but the plan is for them to open up on the 15th, and from what we've heard, it's a very reduced service, pretty much just bedroom stock, reduced occupancy all the way down, especially for places like Houston House, which are obviously smaller properties. The same for Eire, and literally it is a case by case basis. Not all the hotels are going to open. Some may actually stay closed for past the date until the occupancy and the demand's there for it to come through. But they have been speaking to colleagues and stuff. They have received kind of increases in bookings, but then again there's been a big drive. I mean, you've probably seen yourself, Barry, the STV adverts and the press play campaign, which has been playing throughout kind of the last couple of weeks to build up to that 15th, and the discount for kind of 30% stays and all that side of it. So there is some positive stuff, but I think at the moment it's still everyone is still very hesitant, especially with older properties and kind of places like Houston, which is a listed building, so it does make the social distancing and those kind of areas a little bit more challenging. So small restaurants upstairs, kind of small bar areas, so they'll probably be utilising the conference space to actually kind of facilitate any kind of breakfast or anything like that, just from the point of safety and social distancing, really. Yeah,
it's that flexibility which it's challenging for all operators to figure out quite how they can achieve it. I guess one of the most significant announcements north of the border came last week with the announcement that we can now move to, in certain circumstances and where operators are able to comply with control measures, we can move to 1 metre social distancing, whereas in Scotland 2 metres is still very much still the standard. That's still the default position. But for restaurant operators, for hoteliers, for retail if you're able to comply with certain conditions, then we're able to move to that 1 metre distancing. Adam, thanks very much for sharing that with us. I thought what would also be interesting if we get a perspective from across the water. Irish operators, both north and south of the border, north and south of the border, forgive me, have been open for a couple of weeks now. They're perhaps a little bit ahead of us in the game here. So David Collins is joining us from Ireland, from the Republic. DC, I thought it'd just be interesting if you could give us a perspective. You've been open for, or you've had the opportunity to have doors open for a couple of weeks. Are there any trends, any differences in customer behaviour that you're starting to see over that period, and how's things going?
Thanks, Barry. Yes, good morning, everybody. I looked at some stats today, revenue stats across the group for the first 2 weeks of July versus the first 2 weeks of June. Ireland has obviously opened ahead of the UK. Group-wide, and again, this is across the vast, about 130 hotels, roughly split between...
Have you finished your homework? William, have you finished all your homework? Yes.
Roughly split between the UK and Ireland, slightly more in the UK. So far, this month to date, July versus June, we're 11% ahead in terms of gross revenue. So we're pacing ahead of June. That momentum, however, has slowed down somewhat, which reflects perhaps to some extent a restriction on availability, but also I think a natural peaking in terms of demand as people begin to look towards the end of August, beginning of September. So there was certainly a mad rush to get people's holidays booked. People are on holiday now. I'll come to the customer experience in a second. But just briefly, while I'm on numbers for our UK hotels, again, comparing the same period, there's definitely been a similar increase as we saw in Ireland in the first 2 weeks. Currently, revenues from UK hotels in terms of booked revenues are increasing at the rate of 250% currently versus the same period in June, which is a massive increase. But again, that'll be short-lived. That'll begin to peak and stabilize, and then we expect it to begin to decline around about the end of July, the start of August, which again reflects the domestic demand typically, which is leisure, family short breaks. We hope that corporate will begin to kick in then from the end of August, beginning of September. My concern, however, is that looking forward beyond in September and October, we haven't seen any significant increases in demand. We're expecting that, for example, Irish hotels will end up with an average occupancy for the year of 23% versus 73% for 2019. So quite a cataclysmic collapse in demand. In terms of the user experience, you're right, we're a little bit ahead of yourselves in terms of the curve. My own experience has been that it's a pretty soulless experience from a consumer guest point of view. I'd remind people that hotels are not hospitals, that we need to balance care and attention and hygiene, etc., for both our guests and our staff with that, experience. I would suggest that based on the experience of people we're speaking to, the additional cost of, for example, PPE, additional staff, cleaning, etc., and also the fact that most properties can only operate at a 50% occupancy means that it's simply not sustainable. And there's a little bit of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic about all of this, to be honest. I think I agree with Sean there. I think a lot of this is cosmetic. It's not substantial. I'd be a lot more reassured if somebody took a decision to offer hotels what I referred to previously as hibernation grants, and just said, look, just close, we'll pay you to remain closed. Obviously that has an impact in terms of redundancies and continuation of the furlough scheme. But the fact is that in Ireland, for example, it's expected that about 200 out of approximately 150 hotels will close, and most will not reopen. And that's again a cataclysmic collapse of our hotel industry, whatever about the wider tourism business. So I think we're seeing a bit of a respite at the moment. The recovery currently in terms of demand is V-shaped, to coin a phrase. I don't see anything like the sombrero scenario we saw previously in terms of the virus and the pandemic, in terms of recovery for the industry and general economic well-being. I think there's a serious storm coming, and really the best thing people can do perhaps is to conserve cash flow and perhaps look to the medium term in terms of any sign of real recovery.
David, thanks for that. As always, some realistic and honest appraisal there, so much appreciated, and all the best to everyone across the team in Ennis and all across the country. Certainly your sentiments there reflecting a couple of things that I've seen happening locally in Scotland recently. There was the stark announcement, not unexpected last week, from Tom Kitchen, that he is not reopening all of his estate of restaurants. So far announced that Castle Terrace is definitely closing, and I won't name names. I know of at least one other of his properties through a mutual friend that is not expected to reopen. Similarly, I saw an announcement last night from the SLTA, the Scottish Licensed Trade Association, that whilst pubs are allowed to reopen their indoor spaces from tomorrow, their expectation is that probably 30 to 40% of pubs will not open tomorrow, because they've made a decision that they simply can't implement even 1 metre social distancing in a viable way to reopen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. To pick it up very briefly, Robin gave quite a comprehensive overview of the VAT changes earlier on. The one other thing that I want to mention in terms of the Eat Out to Help Out scheme, first step that I would encourage you to be considering and to be taking now is that the website to register yourself to be eligible for the Eat Out to Help Out scheme is now open. It opened yesterday. The application process is really quite simple and straightforward. I had a brief look yesterday. It's a simple web entry website. Information you need to hand are things like your company registration number, your VAT number, your PAYE reference number. For chains, I think it really applies to anybody here. You need to register each individual unit up to a maximum of 25. If you are one of the large multi-operators registering a high street chain, there's another method to do that. But for individuals here, you would just go in and register your 1 or 2 outlets. And I, from a commercial perspective, I would encourage you to do that. Although there will be some extra admin required, I don't think it does any harm for you to be involved within the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. So I would encourage, if you're sitting on the fence at the moment, if you're not sure whether to do it or not, I would encourage you to seriously think about doing that. So that's the state of the nations. We've looked kind of across the UK. I hope that's been some useful, if not maybe very encouraging news, but it's given us a realistic assessment of where we're at across the different parts of the UK at the moment. Many thanks for your attention, and Robin, I'll hand back to you now.
Thank you, Barry. Very good. Thank you very much. Interesting times. And now we have Sarah Thompson and Matt from Expedia. Sarah, do you need to share your screen? Have you got option to share your screen, or Matt?
Yeah. Could you allow me to share, Robin, please?
Have you tried just to see? Where is it? Where are you? Where is it? I'll make you the host if you then send it back to me afterwards. There we go. That should allow you to do it. There we go.
Great. Morning, everyone. Myself and Matthew Quinn from Expedia are just going to run through some market trends and some revenue management tips this morning. So just a quick intro. I'll let Matt introduce himself. He's on the line somewhere. Matt?
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you everyone for having me along today. As Sarah said, my name is Matthew Quinn. I'm the market manager for Expedia, who predominantly looks after the Highlands with a focus on Aberdeen and Inverness. So I can see a few of my partners online here today. So hello, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. And as Robin said, my name is Sarah Thompson. I'm a revenue management consultant based down in Durham, just in the northeast of England. And the company is Octopus Revenue. So we're going to just look at some market trends, which Matt is going to kindly share from Expedia. And then I'll just look through some revenue management priorities for hotels, or certainly things that we've been working on over the last few weeks and across the course of this week. So over to Matt for the first couple of slides.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, so again, thank you very much for having me along today, guys. What Sarah asked me to do was to try and have a look at how almost the state of tourism is within Scotland and how businesses can prepare for the return of tourism. So I've been doing these webinars maybe now for the past month with different DMOs in Scotland and trying to give a picture and reassurances similar to what you guys have been doing, just to show that there is confidence returning in the market and how we are sitting within that picture. Obviously, we're a couple of weeks behind people south of the border, but there's some stats that will show in this presentation to show hopefully give some confidence back to you all that business will return hopefully very, very shortly. Next slide, please, Sarah. So I also need to move my video of myself here to the other screen. So what we've got here is just showing what I wanted to display was when we've had both the announcements and the unofficial announcement within the industry, regardless of where it is, there's been an organic boost in the booking patterns that come from this. So this is some data that we pulled a number of weeks ago, just showing the impact when the virus had hit Spain and Spain was starting to come out of the situation. You can see that there's been an uplift from the unofficial announcement to the announcement date in terms of bookings for hotels during that period. So you can see here a 3 times over increase in the hotel bookings against other kind of quarantined areas. So again, it's just reinforcing that feeling that we're all seeing, that people are keen to travel again. They are keen to get moving. We've all been stuck in our homes for the last 4 or 5 months now. And it's just all about trying to get people with their confidence to get back out into travel patterns. Next slide, please, Sarah. Another one that's been a bit, well, everything's been really badly hit, but obviously the airlines as well. We've seen a similar pattern in Italy when this also happened. So back on the 16th of May, when they actually had their announcement day, their ticket sales increased 3 times over for their border reopening, removal of mandatory quarantine details, overall standards for that period. So again, just showing that when we've seen an uplift, when this has been announced, we have seen an uplift. And Sarah, if you can click over to the next slide, the picture is probably the one you've all been waiting for, is the picture of Scotland against the UK. So what I've got here is a pretty depressing picture. In April, you can see here, so this actually goes back to March. So the red lines moving down the way, that was cancellations. The blue line is bookings, and on the far side you can see grey bars, that's net room nights at that time. So what we had seen obviously with force majeure and lockdown procedures right across Europe and within the UK, we were obviously hindered by being able to accept travel at this point. So for the vast amount of bookings that we had in books already at that period, we had seen a number of cancellations coming through. However, from both the announcement dates of the 22nd of July for England, 22nd of June, sorry, and the 15th of June for Scotland, when Fergus Ewing made his announcement that the industries will open on the 4th of July in England and the 15th of July of Scotland, you can see here patterns of how that started to shift. So for the UK at the bottom, which is England, including Wales, you can see that the booking pattern starting to pick up as we've seen more relaxing of measures and legislation for reopening for the businesses. So what I wanted to display with this was, yes, it has been a struggle and it still continues to be, but as of the announcement dates, we have started to see a shift in those bookings. And as you can see from the 4th of July for the UK, it's really starting to ramp up where confidence is returning to businesses for travellers to get back out into markets. Next slide, please, Sarah. And just to give you a bit of a market overview, trying to find something that was kind of similar products to look at. We've got the Highlands here and the Lake District. So really just enforcing that point again about the 3-week gap and when the announcements will allow for for opening. So you can see here the Highlands a little bit slower, but it is starting to pick up quite well now. So all set for opening again tomorrow. And then similar picture with the lakes, although they've had a few weeks ahead of us, you can start to see the traction really starting to building overall with the bookings and room rate production at that point. So again, you know, it has been tough, but we are starting to get to the other side of this. Next slide, please, Sarah. So a couple of common themes which we've seen across the markets, which I wanted to share with you. So the three kind of main things that we've seen happening over the last couple of weeks here is, first of all, the death of the non-refundable rate.
Carry on here, sir, please.
Sorry, we've seen the death of the non-refundable rate plan. So 95% of the reservations that we've received recently over the last 4 or 5 months have been on a flexible rate plan. I think if you think of it from a consumer point of view, if you can book something that has a 7-day cancellation, a 24-hour cancellation, you know, it's obviously what the customer is going to see as the most viable option for them. So if you can look at a flexible rate plan during this point, it's something that will certainly help. In terms of cleanliness assurances, as you'd imagine, I'm sure you've all discussed this prior, this has been huge for us. It's either been a bigger driver than price. You know, so the safety aspects is actually something that's has a higher conversion of driving at the moment than at this point. So we've updated our Expedia Partner Central pages for you to include all this information. Sorry, is there someone able to mute themselves when they're typing? Sorry.
Yeah, is somebody's got not on mute. I'm not sure who it is. There we go.
Sorry,
Manager. So in terms of cleanliness assurances, what we're asking here is from our perspective on Expedia Partner Central, if you can update this information. This is giving assurances to customers when they're booking, but also for reassurances for things like your staff to show that you have got PPE available for your consumers as well as your staff, that you're cleaning high-touch surfaces, and you're implementing the right protocols for moving forward with this. What you can also do within Expedia Partner Central is you can include both your messaging within the system like this as well, but on guest relations you can send pre-messages, so when a customer books you can make them aware of what protocols you're putting in place to reinforce the measures you're taking. And then finally, a really interesting one, so mobile bookings for me, normally a high mobile percentage of bookings normally indicates something that's visible in a corporate market. So it's normally a very short booking window. It's something that's going to be driving maybe a little bit of a lower rate. However, that's not really been the case recently. So we've seen a massive boost in mobile bookings for both Scotland and England. The figure here is shown for the Highlands at 32%. England's sitting at about 37% as well for bookings within June. So what does that tell us? It's not telling us there's a dramatic drop in rate. What I think it's telling us more than anything is people sitting in their homes, you know, waiting to travel again. It's the searching for a good opportunity for them to travel to destinations such as Scotland or within England to start their staycation process. You know, obviously we have been hindered for our international holiday this year. So the staycation boom is hopefully taking place via these devices. And then I think next and final slide from me, Sarah. Thank you. So the key three things I just wanted to point out as actions, if you could take anything away from today, and I imagine you've already done this and your diaries will be full with everything kicking off tomorrow, but three main things to look at. Make sure that you have inventory loaded as far as you can, ideally to the end of 2021. As many of you will know, we've had cancellations come through because of force majeure, and a lot of guests have been given vouchers to reuse later on within that time period. So if you can stretch that out to the end of 2021, these international customers who have had their holidays hindered because of COVID-19 gives you the better chance to get those bookings further in the books for next year. Again, have an attractable, flexible rate. Again, just putting it as simply as if you're a consumer, if you could book one place as a 24-hour cancellation policy or something that has, say, 72 hours or even a week. As a consumer, during the current climate, what's been going on, the 24 hours is constantly winning through that. As I said, this is 95% of all the bookings we've received recently. So please, you know, use that if you can to help drive your bookings. And then finally, now more than ever, you know, we've been using the last 4 or 5 months, not really been pushing, you know, things like promotional aspects, things like that. What we've been instructing partners to do is really take time to look through your system, understand, you know, is there anything that's been a bugbear that you've been able to fix? So for instance, content, is there a room type or a rate plan you've been wanting to change for a while? This has been the key time to do it. So with adding to that, cleanliness assurances are absolutely key at this moment. So make sure that you're fully up to date and you have all this information available. And this can be found on Expedia Partner Central's homepage as soon as you come in. Update health and safety amenities. As I said, this will be a bigger driver as such as price. So please make sure that you implement that as soon as you can. And I think that's everything for me. And I'll hand you back over to Sarah, but happy to take questions at the end. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Matt. Okay, just to jump on to short-term revenue management priorities. I mean, I know revenue management isn't everybody's cup of tea, so I've kept it brief and 10 sort of short slides. So I'll just run through each point. So first and foremost, this sounds really obvious, but it's really important that hotels get a handle on their business on the books. A lot of hotels are still managing cancellations with having staff on furlough, etc., and teams are just coming back now. So it's really important that we review the business on the books and identify where the risk is around the business on the books, especially around, you know, groups and event periods as well. So what is expected to drop out, what will move into a forward date, and it's quite easy to do this by a market segment where you get a clearer picture of what the business on the books is. And the revenue management managers I've been chatting to have the impression that older reservations that were made sort of like tail end of last year could pose more of a risk than new reservations made now, because the new reservations that are made now, there is that the travel intent is there from those customers who have booked. So nothing really will stop them unless it's something out of their control, like a second wave or a local outbreak. So point one, get a handle on the business. Oh, sorry, getting a handle on the business on the books. Jumping on to point two, track the pickup. Most hotels do this anyway, but it doesn't have to be anything, you know, sophisticated. You don't need a system to do this, just a straightforward Excel spreadsheet. It will help us all relearn the pace of business, because that it will change, and it will also assist with forecasting, especially in the early days, using a pickup method for forecasting. So just on forecasting, I think, you know, hotels are at the point where they're like, you know, how on earth do we put a forecast together when we don't have any data really to work from? So there's three main ways that we can forecast. We can use historical data, which, you know, is not really worth the paper it's written on at this present moment in time. We can use an advanced method like the pickup method, which I'm going to talk about, or a combination of both combined. So we really only have like an additive or a pickup method approach that we can use just as a generic rule of thumb approach, especially in the short term. It's not really that viable longer term, but short term definitely, until we relearn our business. So I'll just show you just a very straightforward, simple exercise. So we can only do this if we're tracking the pickup from our property management system. So the table on the left shows the on the books data for August 2020, room nights revenue and average rate. So every day we have taken the data from the property management system. So on the 7th of July, for August, we had 250 rooms sold, 37 2K, average rate 149, and so on. We've done that every day. So a very simple and straightforward method for hotels to use in the short term is just, just a basic calculation. So you would take your week's worth of data for August, deduct the difference from the 13th to the 7th to work out the total pickup, divide it by the number of days to get an average room night pickup per day, and then calculate how many days left we've got now between now, the 13th of July, to the end of August. and just use that rule of thumb approach to try and get a projected room night volume for August at this moment in time. So it's important to review and record the data every day. So you need to get into a routine, once you reopen, or, hotels prior to reopening have been recording the pickup. And I think it's important to note that lead times will change as well. So although that is a very, simple rule of thumb approach, it's fair to say that once you get nearer to the day of arrival, the pickup may increase because people are going to be booking later, or waiting until the last minute to book. So that pickup method could actually be like, maybe, I don't know, used as like a bit of a, worst case scenario, and then we would like to think that the pickup may increase as we get nearer to day of arrival. And just on distribution, I think it's important to leverage all, distribution channels and get your hotel seen. The leading OTAs have various, recovery initiatives available. I'm not just saying that because Matt's on the line. That would just be my advice. Get the hotel on as many platforms as possible. A lot of hotels are, on a quest to grow their direct channel, which is great. But you need to invest in your direct channel. It's not enough just to have a website. You need to review your website. Matt's already touched on content, COVID message, health and hygiene, but also your booking engine technology and how easy it is for a customer to actually book. So utilize the OTAs to get your hotel seen. The likelihood, there's a high chance that the hotel would jump onto the direct channel anyway. We know that, it's been researched, that hotels will go onto the direct channel. So that's the opportunity there for to showcase your hotel with some nice imagery, up-to-date content, and also make sure that your booking engine technology is, compatible with mobile. Matt's just said 32% of people are booking through mobile. And I think as well, just on channels, we always talk about OTAs. I think the GDS is a little bit of a forgotten channel as well. So there are leisure, there will be some leisure that might come through the GDS, but we've just mentioned, David's just mentioned before about the corporate market, which will hopefully start to pick up come September. So it's just get all of your channels and your content in ship shape ready. And pricing, this is key. So there's a lot of talk about, where should we be priced, now that we're coming out of the other side of COVID. So I think, our advice is, where did you sit in your competitor set before COVID hit? And is there any reason for you to change? So if you were, the market leader in your competitor set, why would you not be after COVID? If you generally sat at the bottom of the pricing in the competitor set, unless you've had, something dramatic has happened over the course of lockdown, then there's no reason to think that that would change when we come out of the other side. So you need to look at what has changed across your market. And if there's nothing significant changed, then there's no reason why you wouldn't dramatically change your price position within your competitor set. If there has been changes, so for example, not all of your hotels in your competitor set are reopening at the same time, then that would, throw a little bit of a curveball. So you need to think about that. Do you have a lot of corporate style? Are you in a corporate market? So what has happened over the competitor set? What marketing message, what direction have they changed into, and what do you need to do to remain competitive? And a lot of revenue managers, because in the absence of systems, a revenue management system or a price recommendation tool, again, they rely on historical data, which we don't have. A lot of hotels are just going back to the drawing board with a good old-fashioned, paper and pen, and using like a price quality matrix. So here they would look at key attributes of what is important. So again, you need to look at this with a fresh pair of eyes, because what was important before might not necessarily be as significant now. So you would look at the key attributes, what a customer would find important for your hotel. So where before it might have been, you know, leisure facilities, now it's not going to be as significant, obviously, if they're not open. So things that might be important to a customer would be on-site car parking, you know, health and hygiene processes, what is available on site to do room service, food options, restaurant, etc. So what we would do, we would just plot those criteria on a matrix, just to show basically your price versus the quality or the attributes that your hotel is offering. And I've got, if anybody wants to run through that out with the call, I can send them the document. It's quite a straightforward document to complete, just to show you where your price, where your hotel is positioned within a composite. And just looking at marketing, obviously we all know it's important that we get our story out, you know, tell the world what you have done with your team, what changes you've made in the hotel, and invest in your direct channel. So like I said before, it's not enough just to have a website now. You need to, you know, work with the direct channel, especially if you want to gain a little bit of market share through direct. Keyword research is important, not only for your own hotel, but also what has happened across your competitors. So, you know, you can quickly look at your competitor key words via their website as well. And Matt's already mentioned the importance of content, especially around, you know, health and hygiene. And then what do we do in-house when the customer checks in? So regardless of whatever channel they've booked through, you know, what do we do with regards to that customer data, obviously along with GDPR regulations? What do we collect, and how do we incentivize our customer to book direct next time around if they've enjoyed their stay? And just looking at pricing and inventory management, it's easy for us to say to try and avoid getting into a price war with your competitors. So hotels already have an occupancy issue. We don't want to have a rate issue as well. So try to avoid public discounts where possible. You'll use opaque pricing or closed user groups to discount if need be. Review all of your rate plans and the T's and C's around them. So we've seen, you know, in one of Matt's slides, 95% of reservations through Expedia are on Flex. Review all of your supplements, room types. So where normally would you charge £40 to upgrade to a deluxe, you know, to encourage people to trade up, could you, you know, lower that to 20 as an example? Again, look at food supplements. So if you've got a bog standard £15 supplement on top of room only for breakfast, does it have to be 15? Could it be 10? Look at your family room types. You know, could you create different room type categories? Review your min, max occupancy levels as well, especially to try and, you know, win, you know, the domestic leisure and the family market business as well. Keep on top of your room type availability. So if you've got your lead-in price against your standard room type, especially if you're running on reduced capacity, you need to make sure that you would have that lead-in room type available at all times. So if it does sell out, you need to take the decision whether you upgrade existing customers to the next room type up to free up that base room type for sale. And it's especially important to try and get sell through on more than one night on that same room type. And Matt's already touched on extending the booking window if you can beyond 365 days. Changing that, Barry has already touched on this, Robin has already touched on this as well. So how and when should this influence price? So, you know, like everyone, we've heard different discussions and ideas around the impact of the change in VAT. So, I mean, for us, the pricing factors for a hotel are very much led by supply and demand and not VAT. So if you're in a market that has strong demand, so using, I don't know, Cornwall or the Lakes as an example, so those coastal regions, if the demand in their market is strong, then why would they drop their price? It doesn't make sense from a revenue management point of view to drop the price. However, it does give hotels that are in markets that are struggling a little bit that flexibility to be a little bit more competitive if they need to be. So what we're saying out to hotels is, you know, instead of just thinking, oh, we better drop our price, really your price needs to be determined by the market factors. So if your competitors have not made any changes, then why would you make changes to your price? But obviously it's a fine line, because we've got to deal with pre-existing reservations and customers calling to say, oh, do we get a discount now that the VAT is changed? So that's, you know, an internal decision for the hotel. But for any forward reservations made, I mean, the price is the price. So if the price is £100 for the room, then it's £100 Inc. VAT, regardless of what that VAT element may be. And then just moving on, just free or low cost revenue management tools. I mean, a rate shopping tool for me, you know, that is the primary, our go-to tool that we would look at, and they're not overly expensive. Most people have a rate shopping tool that they use anyway. Forward Star, so trying to get a handle on forward rooms sold. This is a new product it's new in some markets. A new product by STR, where the hotels are submitting now their forward rooms sold, which STR aggregate, and they circulate a weekly report on a Monday that shows the forward occupancy for a market or a specific comp set, and what the pickup has been since the previous report. So this is established in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Inverness, Manchester, and there's some London sub-markets already submitting, and it's planned for Newcastle, Leeds, Birmingham and Bristol markets. So the market-wide data is completely free. So once that product is launched, you can submit and you would get the generic market-wide data free of charge. If you want a specific comp set forwards report, then that's when there's a charge. STR historical data once hotels start to submit. And then forward search from various tools. I know there's the hotel benchmarking tool from 80 Days based in Edinburgh that's completely free, that will show you visitors to the website and conversion stats. And then also extranet insights from OTAs, so the likes of Expedia, Booking.com is all completely free of charge as well. And then obviously internal reports to utilise as well. And then last, you know, carry on what we're doing. I think, you know, network and communicate, share best practice and monitor trends. And for me, trends is key. So what is happening in other markets and other countries, and how can we translate that back to our own market here. And that's it. Thank you for listening. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody wants any information, then I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Matt. Matt, I've got one question from Julian asking if there's any information between commercial and leisure, and also if there's a clear sign of much discounting going on in the market at the moment.
Yes, so to answer the first question about the corporate leisure split, it varies between market, Robin, at the moment. So what we're seeing is, so for instance, Aberdeen is still seeing quite a lot of room nights coming through, and has seen for the last few weeks and months, because of the Essential Traveller platform that was made available for them. However, at the moment, not being able to break it down as such, but we are seeing a significant raise, as you can see, a rise in bookings across the platforms there. I haven't been able to break that down as such to see where it is coming from. But as I said, in other markets, we know there's already strong, say, essential or corporate travel within that element currently at the moment. In terms of discounting, not heavily. We haven't really seen a lot. Obviously, we have to be careful how we talk about, you know, pricing. But overall, there's not been a great deal. Anything that we've discussed with partners has been what we call fenced environments. So either things that is done through the package path, where someone books flights and car hire and accommodation, or say member pricing. So never anything really with the public element. The only other thing we've discussed in terms of promotional aspects is, because at the time we were unsure about what the impact was going to be about how long a room had to be dormant before the next guest checked in, we were looking at longer length of stays, so promoting 2, 3, 4, even 5 nights to boost that staycation element for people to stay longer. The longer someone stays in the room, the less cleaning costs that you have, the less time that the room is going to be dormant, and the loss of revenue you will receive. So to answer your question, we've not seen a great deal of drop in rates, and people seem to be holding their own, but maybe being a bit clever about how they price things.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, could you just unshare your screen so that I can see the... Brilliant, thank you. Anybody else got anything they'd like to ask? Feel free to unmute and shout out. No? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Very interesting. Very good advice there. Just a minute, just Sarah, can you put me as host just so that I don't lose everything when everybody checks off? Another interesting forum, and I hope everybody's learnt something. Feel free to contact anybody who's on the forum who might be able to help you with any advice. We're all a friendly bunch, and I know these are difficult times, and that's why I created the forum, really, so that people can collaborate and just get the most out of their business at this moment in time. Next forum will be in 2 weeks, as usual, Tuesday morning. So with that, I really look forward to seeing everybody again.
Great, thanks, Robin.
All right.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Barry.
Right. Sarah, can you go off until we've changed to host? Thanks.
Good to see everyone again this morning. Thanks for giving us your time and joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, hopefully keep reasonably busy, keep safe, and start getting the tills ringing. Bye for now.
Yep, thanks, Barry. That's good. Robin, good.
No.
Very, very.
Robin, thanks very much indeed. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Sarah?
Hi, Robin.
Hi, do you know how to change me to host?
Yes, I thought I had. Sorry.
No. It happened before and I lost all the chat and everything the last time.
Oh.
So I'm slightly nervous, so you say. It doesn't seem to be changing yet.
Well, I've ticked multiple participants can share.
No, if you go to participants.
Oh, right, I've done it. I've got it here. Right, there we go.
Yeah, no, I'm still not the host. If you go to participants and then click in more, you can say it says make that person host.
Who can share? Only the host. That's yourself.
Yeah, but no. If you click on the participants at the bottom,
yeah,
it comes up at the side with participants, and if you click at the side, if you click on me, or hover over me, there's an option for more.
Done it. That's it.
There we go. Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. I think
that's all right.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, there's a lot of things that we already know, but it's just reconfirming that that we're well. Yeah. Some things have evolved and some things haven't. We're just waiting. It's a timing thing more than anything, isn't it? So.
Yeah. And it was good. It was good about the sort of like for them restarting their forecasting and those techniques and everything, because it is a case of learning from scratch now.
Definitely, and I think hotels are scratching their head thinking, well, you know, I think they've accepted that whatever they put in the forecast will be wrong. So, you know, how you need to start somewhere, don't you? And you need to start, and then you can only do that by doing a rough rule of thumb, and then it will evolve over time as as we move through the weeks. The weeks to come, but no, that was good. Hope everyone got something out of it. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, it was very good, and thanks to Matt. He's disappeared now, but thanks to Matt.
Yeah. I'm going to give him a call just now. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. All right. Take care.
And
Goodbye.
you. Bye.